Welcome to the Ultimate Water Guide. In this video, we're going to tell you absolutely everything you need to know about how the water system works on Arrakis in Dune Awakening, starting from the very beginning where you're struggling to find water as a survival mechanic as it evolves into a late game construction mechanic and doesn't really impact your survival too much from then on. Let's get started. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. How much of a risk is dehydration? As you're running around the game world doing various activities, your hydration level will drop. This is marked by the blue bar in the bottom left corner of your screen. If it gets to the very bottom, you will suffer the effects of dehydration. This bar drops at a pace depending on various factors, including your environmental protection, which is usually provided by your gear, the heat of the biome you're in, and other sort of various things such as what you're doing. But it typically drops at a very similar rate. Unless you're sort of walking around naked in the heat, then it will drop quite quickly. But how dangerous is it and how much do you need to panic? Well, not too much. So once you actually get to the dehydration level, you will get a small message come up on your screen saying your character is dehydrated. At this point, there's definitely cause for concern, but don't fret too much. You will have a status effect pop up at the bottom of your screen showing you that you are dehydrated. As this builds up, your health will continue to drop, and eventually, once that gets to full, you will die. You will not be able to heal through the damage. Your stamina will go down as well, so your max stamina will be limited the more dehydrated you become. But it isn't until either your health runs out or the dehydration bar fills that you will die. This is slightly different to normal death because once you are incapacitated, when you're crawling around and you can usually revive yourself, you can't do that if you're dehydrated. So if you go down in that state and there's no friends nearby, you will have to die. But as I said, don't panic too much. You do have quite a substantial amount of time between dehydration kicking in and actual death. So now you understand the actual threat of death. Let's move over to the sort of start of the water table, if you will, in Dune Awakening. Now, to begin with, you're going to be doing much of this. You're going to have a small base somewhere in Higgan Basin. Where you actually spawn is different, but it's going to be much the same experience regardless. You're going to want to put roots down, and you're going to want to find some water. Now, 2 quick tips just while you're on this video. Don't make a massive base down here. You are going to have to move very shortly in the story, so don't invest too much time into your first base. Secondly, get used to the scanning probes. This is part of the story progress in the journeys. It will tell you to use these, but make sure you bring one with you every time you visit a new region, because it completely unmaps the entire region for you. And the number one key in survival situations is to know your terrain, know your environment. So this will help you when you're exploring and navigating to not get lost and not waste precious time searching for water going in the wrong direction. Now, this won't bring up the resources on your map. For that, you need a scanning device. You can get a handheld scanner. You can also get scanners equipped to your vehicles. So you can have a scanner on the sandbike, you can have one on the copter, you can have one on the buggy. What this does is it scans the immediate vicinity for resources and pops them all up on your map for you and on your screen. So I'll show you mine here. Obviously, you're not going to have an ornithopter early on. Do not worry about it. As I said, you can get a hand scanner and you can also get one on the sandbike, both of which are available very early on. You'll see me scan here and you can see all these tiny little triangles pop up on the screen. These are resources. Once they have popped up on the screen, they will pop up on your map. This includes the primrose fields, which is the water source you're going to rely on in the first couple of hours of the game. Basically, whenever you see one of these, you can approach them and you can drink from them, but it will only fill up to the first line in your water. You can't use it to completely satiate yourself. It's just there to fend off dehydration and death. So this is kind of stage 1 of the water process. Build somewhere relatively close to a primrose field. Make sure you've got it scanned so you know where it's at all times. Then you can always go back and forth. Once you've got that sort of ground basis in, we can then move on to the next stage, which is a bit more intricate, but still quite simple. The next tier of water in terms of survival happens basically organically whenever you unlock the improvised blood extractor and the small blood sac. Now, these are technologies you can unlock and craft by choice. They're also relatively common to find in chests in the game world. And basically what this lets you do, once you have these technologies and the equipment constructed, you can go out, kill enemies, then use the blood extractor to extract the blood, which automatically stores it in a blood sac. You can then head back to your base, and as long as you've built one of the 2 blood machines, you can put the blood onto the blood machine. Now, you can drink directly out of the small blood sac, but it's kind of a waste, so only use it in emergencies. When you put it onto the machine, it will slowly begin to turn the blood into water. All tiers of the blood machine are identical, they just have more storage and convert more blood. So this is where the game kind of introduces you to a sort of mid to later game mechanic in terms of the circuit of water in your base. If you look at this right column here, there are 2 bits of information. You have this very large bar on the left. This represents the water capacity for this singular item, right? This one blood refinery can hold that much water. On the right hand side of that, you see another bar, which is your circuit. This represents your overall storage of water in your entire base, your base's storage capacity. This will be at 0 other than the refinery, unless you've built some of the water storing devices. So as you progress and you use the higher tier, so if you get to the Mark II and the Mark III blood harvesting tools, you are going to want to have water storage in your base, because otherwise you will greatly outstrip your need in terms of just personal hydration. But it does have another very important role, which is in construction, which we'll move into now. So it's at this point really where your personal survival in terms of your water requirements isn't really that much of a concern anymore. But there are a few branching paths here that you as a player will need to choose which direction you want to go based on how you're playing the game. This isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It very much depends on whether you're a casual player or a more hardcore player, whether you're playing alone, in a very small group, in a large group. It's very much going to depend on what your needs are. Personally for me, if you plan to play this game for the long haul, follow the journey quests. These journey quests will get you to find several different challenges in the game world. We've got a full guide up for all of the trial locations. If you've got fast transport, you can knock it out in a few hours. Once they're done, you unlock a special Fremen tech that will allow you to capture bodies from dead enemies, put them on the tech. It then extracts 25,000 water an hour. So you can easily put 2, 3, 4 of these down in very large bases and have 100,000 water coming in every hour. This is more than enough, not just for your hydration, but for the vast majority of your crafting needs. However, that does involve completing all of the trials and having quite a large base. So if you're not that way inclined and you don't want to put that much effort into it, the other alternatives are to increase your blood harvesting abilities by just keep researching the higher level blood harvesting tools and the higher level blood sacks, or you can go to harvesting dew itself. This one's a bit like the top tier ones for me just don't feel worth the investment of resources, but the lower tier ones aren't too bad. And again, you can find these in the game world. With these tools, basically, if you visit these fields in the early hours of the night, so once it's gone dark and you've sort of progressed a few hours in, you can visit these fields and cut them all up. As long as you've got some kind of water storage device on you, it will fill that device. And that's mostly for personal use. You can, if you want to, go back to one of your blood banks or one of your water boxes and store the water from your personal device in there. But it's kind of like using a bucket to fill a lake, right? If you're going for the hardcore crafting stuff and you want to make all these high tier materials, you're going to need to get the Fremen tech in. Otherwise, stick with the blood packs and the dew harvesters, and that'll be enough for personal supply. But ultimately, it's up for you and how you and your friends, if you've got friends, plan to play the game. That's not a jibe. I pretty much play these games solo. But that kind of summarizes everything you need to know about water, guys. If I've missed anything, do post some questions down below and I'll help you out if I can. But there you go, nice and quick, nice and easy. Get what you need and get back to the game. We helped you out today. Do like, subscribe, we do appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care now.